Hey, I'm Elaine, and this is where my forefathers used to live. Walden, or Life in the Woods, was a book written by Henry David Thoreau. It talked about his life adventures as he lived in the woods. The pond was a beautiful place that he came to relax almost every day. Now, the pond was not always like this. This pond is all black, and you can't even tell where any of the rocks at the bottom because you can't see through it. All of this land is clear out through here because of modern day civilizations. This is what modern day society has done to our natural beauty. There's been a road and cars. Houses have been built. All of this land that was once natural beauty has been cleared and taken. In the winter, icemen come and they scrape the ice off the top of the pond so they can have it for storage for later on usage. Railroads have been installed to go through the woods, so all you hear is the sound of the train. But this is not always how this used to look. Walden Pond was half a mile long, and it was surrounded by 61.5 acres of woods and natural beauty. The water of Walden Pond appears to be different colors from different angles. From an aerial view, it is blue, and up close it appears to be more green. It is well known that a large plate of glass will have a green tint, owing, as the markers say, to its body, but a small piece of the same will be colorless. How large a body of Walden water would be required to reflect a green tint, I have never proved. That is what Henry Thoreau stated. Up on this hill is where they used to have gatherings, but one day something went wrong, and they were having a powwow out there. And they were using too much profanity, and the hill started shaking. And then the hill sunk all the way deep into the ground, and this is how the pond was formed. The water is so clear it's almost transparent. You could look down and see the fish. There were no plants at the bottom of the pond, it was all rocks and dirt. One winter, Thoreau was fishing through a hole in the ice on the pond. His axe slid through the hole to the bottom of the pond. The water was so clear he could see right where the axe was, so he made another hole in the ice and made a rope to fetch the axe and retrieved it with no problem. I have observed one rise in a part of two falls, and I expect that a dozen or 15 years hence the water will again be as low as I have ever known it. Every year Walden Pond varies in depth. In the winter the pond is higher than in the summer. Every 12 to 15 years the water makes a drastic change in depth. When the pond stays higher for a few years, it kills all of the vegetation around it, so the land is clear. The pond is not as abundant in fish as you would think. Compared to its size, the pond has very little fish, but those fish are stronger than normal. The shiners, pouts, and perch also, and indeed all the fishes which inhabit this pond are much cleaner, handsomer, and firmer flesh than those in the river and most other ponds, as the water is purer, and they can easily be distinguished from them. In the last part of October, the skater bugs disappear when the frost starts. The pond is silent because all the fish have settled at the bottom. One day Thoreau ran into an old man who told him a story of how there used to be lots of animals that had a home at the pond. He also found an old log canoe that he used to use every day when he visited the pond. There was another old man who told him a story of an iron chest that floated in the pond sometimes. But once he tried to go closer to the iron chest, it would go down into the water and nobody could ever get near it. But since I have left those shores, the woodchoppers have still further laid them waste, and now for many a year there will be no more rambling through the aisles of the wood, with occasional vistas through which you can see the water. My muse may be excused if she is silent henceforth. How can you expect the birds to sing when their groves are cut down? This quote has explained what has happened to the pond and how it looks today. I would give anything for this land to go back and look like it once did, but unfortunately for our modern day lives, that's not a reality.
Hey, I'm Paige Spell. Thoreau starts off the chapter by describing in detail his natural observations.
therefore showing his appreciation for nature. He expresses his love for nature when he metaphorically states that being in the forest was like being in God's temple. He also says the sunlight reflects on nature like it's the light of God. Next, Thoreau wants to take on a journey of fishing. When he starts to cast over the pricklewood, a shower came up. After using his handkerchief for a shed, Thoreau runs to what he thought was a cabin, but there he finds good and honest but lazy John Fields. Compared to Thoreau's small, clean, and economical cabin, John's had holes leaking water through the roof, chickens in the house for shelter, and a busy family to care for. Thoreau tried to tell John that by living simply it would help him get ahead financially. Thoreau doesn't use tea, coffee, butter, milk, or fresh meat. By doing so, he doesn't have to work. He fishes when he needs and gets food when he needs. After John proved he wasn't a good enough fisherman, he decided to stick with how he had been living, work for his money, then use his money for his necessities. Thoreau saw people like John as serfs, enslaved to the land to buy and sell produce to support families.
John, do you know how to fish?
Yeah, man.
If you live like me, you can just fish. You don't have to work for your food.
You mean I don't have to go out and bog every day?
Yeah, you can just live off the land. You can just fish when you need to and pick whatever crops you need to.
That sounds a lot simpler than my life.
Yeah, I go without tea and coffee and sugar. There are lots of things you don't really need.
It looks like you're doing just fine.
You're looking like you have a hard time fishing.
Oh no, they'll come eventually. I'm doing good right now. You just got a lucky spot.
Well, we can switch spots if you want.
Okay. I'll catch one eventually.
I got a bite.
No. I don't really know how I'm gonna live simple. I have to work to support my 2 kids and wife.
But you don't have to work. You can just live off the land. I know it would be hard, but in the long run, it's really easier. You can get ahead in life by just living off the land and not having to pay for everything.
How am I supposed to get heat?
You don't need it. It's just something to think about, John.
I'll take a gander at it.
Rise free from care before the dawn and seek adventures. By this, Henry Thoreau meant, don't worry about what is going to happen. Have faith, and God will provide for you. Go out into the day and see what happens when you interact with nature. Enjoy the land, but own it not. Use what you need to survive. Build houses with trees, eat fish for food, or grow crops. But don't claim the land because you can never really own it. The Indians are a good example of living off the land, but also believing in God. A man will not need to study history to find out what is best for his own culture. In the early 1800s, it was a new world from Europe. Thoreau was trying to get people to live a new way instead of going back to living the way they just ran away from. After leaving the field's beaten-down cabin, Thoreau begins to value both sides of his own nature after seeing a woodchuck. He begins to realize that the importance of a person's education is to learn how one can hunt.